Shaun "Diddy" Combs, already serving a 50-month sentence, thought the saga was over, but the courtroom doors swung open again. Cassie Ventura and her legal team had petitioned to reopen the case, claiming new, critical evidence the world had never seen. On this tense Friday morning, Manhattan buzzed with chaos. Flashing cameras, helicopters circling the skyline, and fans holding signs both for Diddy and for justice for Cassie. Inside the SDNY courtroom, the air was thick with anticipation. Diddy sat at the defense table, the confident mogul replaced by a man gripped with fear, as Cassie took the stand and announced she had brought the truth. Slowly, she revealed evidence from hotel security footage, time-stamped and authenticated, showing moments from Diddy's private parties, events insiders had whispered about but never confirmed. The courtroom gasped as she described abuse and manipulation hidden behind the glamour of fame. Objections from Diddy's lawyer, Mark Agnifil, were overruled, leaving Diddy's defenses crumbling. Cassie's voice, trembling yet firm, spoke directly to him. Money could not shield him from the truth. As clips and documents revealed terrified witnesses and corroborating testimony, even the jury seemed captivated. Outside, the world watched live as news tickers screamed, "New Cassie evidence shocks SDNY court. Diddy faces possible life sentence." In that moment, it was clear. This hearing wasn't just about one man's sentence. It was a reckoning of power, secrecy, and the unstoppable force of a voice finally refusing to be silenced. Shaun "Diddy" Combs, once untouchable, sat frozen at the defense table, his blank stare a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around him. Cassie Ventura had returned to the SDNY courtroom with a resolve hardened by years of silence, bringing evidence that exposed the dark reality behind Diddy's empire. Her lawyer played clips from what they called the truth tape, showing frightened women being forced out of hotel suites, their voices trembling as they described the control and fear Diddy had wielded. The courtroom gasped, jurors exchanged horrified glances, and even seasoned reporters paused mid-note, sensing the weight of history in the making. Diddy's lawyer objected repeatedly, citing surprise and prejudice, but Judge Subramanian overruled him each time, letting the evidence speak. Then came a surprise witness, a former security employee, who described the inner workings of Diddy's private events, confiscated phones, silenced victims, and parties disguised as glamorous affairs, but driven by intimidation. The jurors' unease deepened, and Diddy's composure began to crack visibly, the first real sign of defeat. Cassie, her eyes glistening but her voice unwavering, addressed him directly, reminding him that money and power could not bury the truth forever. Each new clip, each testimony, each corroborating document layered the story like bricks, constructing a case impossible to ignore. Outside, the world watched in rapt attention as news alerts labeled the day the reckoning, with social media and news outlets alive with updates. The atmosphere inside the courtroom was electric yet suffocating, the air thick with the finality of truth confronting privilege. When Cassie spoke of closure rather than revenge, her words cut deeper than any footage. The man who once walked red carpets surrounded by flashing lights now appeared small, shrunken under the cold, impartial glare of justice. As the judge called for a brief recess before final sentencing, everyone, reporters, jurors, and onlookers, knew that this was more than a trial. It was the collapse of a carefully constructed empire. Diddy's legacy, built on fear, control, and silence, now faced the undeniable power of exposure and accountability. The courtroom remained tense and silent, each person bracing for the next chapter, aware that when the gavel fell again, it might not just end a trial, it could end Diddy. The final moments of Shaun "Diddy" Combs' trial unfolded like a storm no one could escape. Cassie Ventura's attorney rose, pacing slowly, voice deliberate and sharp. This was not about fame or fortune. It was about abuse of power, about how for years Diddy had thought his influence could silence anyone, even victims seeking peace. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom as the attorney recounted the courage of Cassie and the witnesses who had risked everything to come forward, despite threats, intimidation, and public scrutiny. Diddy's lawyer pleaded on his behalf, citing public humiliation, his charitable work, and cooperation since the case reopened. But the judge remained unshaken, listening quietly, hands folded, eyes fixed. The air grew heavy as Judge Subramanian leaned forward, delivering words that cut through the tension. Every piece of evidence, every testimony, every second of footage painted a picture impossible to ignore, and the time for excuses had passed. Outside, sirens wailed and crowds swelled, holding signs demanding justice, while inside, Diddy muttered under his breath, "This can't be happening," as his empire crumbled before him. The judge's voice, low and unyielding, recounted the previous 50-month sentence and acknowledged the new evidence, the truth tape and witness statements, forcing a full reassessment. The courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath as he declared that these were not isolated incidents but deliberate, sustained patterns of coercion, assault, and abuse of power. Objections from the defense fell silent, overruled, as the gavel hovered in the air. And then it came: life imprisonment. A collective gasp echoed across the room. Reporters froze mid-note. Jurors shifted uneasily, and Cassie's tears streamed freely as her attorney whispered, "It's over. Finally over." Diddy, once untouchable, slumped forward, elbows on knees, hands clutching his head, a shadow of the man who once commanded stages and flashed lights. The judge's final words rang with authority. "Fame does not shield one from justice. This courtroom belongs to truth, not power." The gavel struck, once, twice, sealing the verdict. Outside, chaos erupted, screaming reporters, blaring sirens, cheering protesters, crying onlookers, and headlines exploding across screens. Diddy sentenced to life. Empire falls. Cassie stood silently, looking at him one last time, whispering, "You can't silence the truth forever." Diddy said nothing, handcuffs clinking as U.S. Marshals led him away. His carefully built empire, constructed on influence and fear, had fallen, not with applause, not with music, but with the unyielding weight of justice. The courtroom emptied, leaving only the echo of the gavels and the undeniable reality that power, however great, could not escape accountability. Exhaustion hung heavy in the SDNY courtroom, the kind that follows years of unheard cries finally meeting justice. Judge Aaron Subramanian rose briefly before stepping down, his words lingering. Justice has been served. Outside, Manhattan erupted into chaos, flashing cameras, crowded news vans, and the roar of people clamoring to capture the headline of the decade: life sentence for Diddy. For a fleeting moment, inside the courtroom, Diddy's eyes met Cassie's, the woman he had once sought to control and silence. Time seemed to stop. She didn't flinch, didn't speak, but her calm presence spoke volumes. His lawyer murmured frantically about appeals, but the words fell flat against the weight of truth and the finality of the verdict. As Diddy was let out, the cold October air rushed in, mingling with the flashes of cameras and the cheers, or tears, of onlookers. Social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag Cassie wins, hashtag Diddy life sentence, hashtag justice served. Cassie, guided by her attorney, stepped forward as reporters pressed microphones toward her, voices overlapping. She paused, steadying herself, and spoke softly yet firmly. This was never about revenge, but about truth, truth that cannot be buried. With that, she walked down the courthouse steps, disappearing into the swirl of flashing lights and cameras, leaving behind a statement far louder than words. Meanwhile, in a black van slowly pulling away, Diddy sat head down, staring blankly through reinforced glass, the music of the city now replaced by the sound of accountability. Behind concrete walls and steel bars at MDC Brooklyn, a man who once lived in mansions would awaken to a life stripped of luxury, his empire dismantled. The legend was over, and for the first time in decades, justice did not whisper, it roared. The city of Manhattan was electric that Friday morning. Outside the Southern District of New York, news vans crowded the steps, cameras flashed incessantly, and the air was thick with anticipation. Fans, protesters, and reporters jostled for position, all vying to witness what could be one of the most shocking courtroom moments in modern history. Shaun "Diddy" Combs, once the untouchable mogul whose name alone commanded power and influence, sat in the courtroom, his expression as controlled as ever, or at least as controlled as he could manage under the suffocating weight of what was about to unfold. His lawyers whispered urgently in his ear, their voices almost drowned out by the low hum of conversation, clicking pens, and the occasional cough from the gallery. But Diddy barely reacted. For hours he had maintained a mask of composure, but underneath, anxiety gnawed at him like fire through paper. Every person in that room could feel it, the tension like static electricity waiting for a spark. Cassie Ventura, the woman who had remained silent for years, entered the courtroom escorted by federal marshals and her legal team. She moved with measured determination, each step echoing off the marble floors. She didn't glance at Diddy. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was a statement. Years of fear, manipulation, and control had forged her into something unbreakable. Today, she carried not just her voice, but proof, the evidence that had remained hidden, locked away in security files, time-stamped and authentic. For the first time, the world would see the truth she had been too scared to reveal before. Judge Aaron Subramanian entered at exactly 9 a.m., the gavel striking with authority, and the courtroom fell into a tense hush. Cassie took the stand, raising her right hand to swear the oath, and for a brief moment, Diddy looked up. Panic flitted across his features, though he quickly tried to suppress it. He was used to control, to influence, to having the world bend around him. But this was different. This was raw exposure, undeniable proof, and the law itself was the instrument. The first video clip was played. Grainy, time-stamped, showing a Miami hotel suite in 2017. On the surface, it looked like a glamorous party, laughter, drinks, music, but the lens captured moments hidden from the public. In the corner, a young woman, Cassie herself, flinched and hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, seeking a way out. Every attendee was unaware, or thought they were, that this footage existed. The courtroom gasped. Even the jurors, trained to stay impartial, exchanged looks of disbelief. The weight of the evidence was immediate, crushing, and the murmur of reporters typing furiously seemed almost sacrilegious in the hushed room. Diddy's lawyers objected. Prejudice, illegally obtained evidence, surprise, all arguments meant to derail the proceedings, but Judge Subramanian overruled without hesitation. "Sit down, Mr. Agnifil. The evidence will be reviewed in full." The courtroom silence grew heavier. Diddy's posture stiffened, his knuckles whitened against the table. He could feel the walls closing in, the empire he had built on fear, influence, and charm beginning to crack due to scrutiny. Cassie's voice, steady yet charged with emotion, narrated each frame. "For years, I stayed quiet. I was scared. I was controlled. But I am not scared anymore." She paused, letting the gravity settle. The jury absorbed every word, each frame of the tape, each corroborating document brought forward by her attorneys. Then came witness testimony, a former hotel security employee, escorted in by federal agents, whose name would remain confidential. Her words cut deeper than any video. She described confiscated phones, silenced women, the constant threat that kept everyone compliant. She spoke of the tape, hidden for years, Diddy calling it his insurance policy. Cassie had found it before anyone could destroy it. Diddy's defenses faltered. His attempts to whisper instructions, to find allies in the room, all fell flat. His lawyers' objections were futile against the weight of truth. The audience in the courtroom could almost feel his empire crumbling in real time. Reporters outside streamed every detail. Social media erupted with hashtags. Hashtag Cassie wins. Hashtag Diddy exposed. Hashtag justice served. The city itself seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if Manhattan itself held its breath for what would come next. Hours passed. Clip after clip, testimony after testimony, the courtroom bore witness to years of manipulation, coercion, and abuse. Cassie's poise never wavered, though tears occasionally shimmered in her eyes. Each statement, Each frame of CCTV footage validated her story and dismantled the carefully constructed facade of power Diddy had relied upon for decades. It was no longer a trial. It was a reckoning.